Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown Episodes, a weekly look back at the biggest news stories and events from the weekend in the NFL. We've just completed a Wildcard Weekend and we're going to have a look back at the action from those games and look forward to the divisional games. We're now at a stage where 24 teams are in sunny Cabot, yet here we are stuck in sunny, I'm lying there, cold and wet Scotland.
Wishing I was in Cabo.
Yeah, too many NFL players are.
Why is that a problem? It's not a problem for me.
Some of my partner are going to Cancun, not just Cabo, some are going to Cancun. So it depends where they're going. Anyway, they're all in Mexico.
And we're not.
Because they're out of the playoffs. Before we get into tonight's action, make sure you're following us on Instagram and TikTok and subscribe on YouTube and all podcast platforms to get a notification of when our next podcast drops and to get all our latest content on social media, including an announcement coming up where we will be hosting an event on Super Bowl Sunday. All will be revealed in due course. Tonight, I am joined by the one member of the Tartan Touchdown team that actually had a vested interest in the weekend's action. It's Sarah, how are you?
I'm fine, considering we had the cards dealt at the weekend, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, I'm only joking. I'm actually pretty good. It was a very interesting slate of games at the weekend. I'm looking forward to another interesting slate of games this weekend and can't wait to walk through with you.
Excellent. Well, we had 6 games over the weekend, as we all know by now that the number 1 seeds get the bye in the wildcard round, so we had 6 games to go through. And due to breaking news, Sarah, we're actually going to start this with Monday Night Football. We will come to the breaking news very shortly. But on Monday Night Football, it was Aaron Rodgers at home in the playoffs with the weight of expectations on him against your divisional rivals, the Texans. How did it play out for Mr. Rodgers?
Well, probably not the way the script usually goes. I think the game quickly became less about Rodgers' resume and more about how relentlessly uncomfortable that those Texans defensive players made for him all night. Like that opening drive, the defense set the tone. They were aggressive up front, disciplined on the back end, and completely unafraid of the moment. And I just think Rodgers never looked settled, and when that happens, the margin for error really sinks fast. Yeah, it was just the drives were all stalled, third downs were an issue, and everything just felt like a half step off of the pace.
Yeah, it did look like he just couldn't get away from someone, maybe I don't know, a Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes. They would have got out of the pocket. They would have got themselves space. Rodgers just doesn't have that speed or that quickness of foot to get away from that pass rush anymore. I mean, you mentioned the Texans defense, 12 quarterback hits in the whole game, including 4 sacks.
I'm surprised he's still upright.
It's why he's not got a broken hip.
Exactly, right?
But it was a very defensive game across pretty much 3 quarters. But at the end of the third quarter, it was 7-6 to the Texans, so it was taking into that fourth quarter. But to me, it just looked like, we mentioned the Texans defense just stopped the Steelers doing anything. But the Texans offense just weren't connected. It wasn't like the Steelers were stopping them from playing. The Texans just couldn't get any momentum going in the first 3 quarters, could they?
Well, I think that's been the problem for the Texans all kind of year. Everyone has said is that they are winning based on their defense, and we know we said defense wins championships, which is exactly what could happen and may happen. And we'll talk about it later on, but I'm really interested to see what happens when they come up against their next rivals, because I think that's going to be a really interesting matchup for them. Yeah. Then
this game just exploded in the fourth quarter. It was 7-6 at the start of the fourth quarter, folks. And if you've not seen this already, it finished 30-6 to the Texans. The Texans put up 23 points in that fourth quarter. They just went absolutely bananas, didn't they?
Mental. I mean, I found this stat earlier, which was absolutely shocking. But the Texans are the first team since 1940 to score multiple defensive touchdowns while allowing 0 in a playoff game, which the 1940s game is against the Bears in Washington, which was like a 77-0 game. So absolutely wild. But I think as well, you can every time they gave the ball, every time the Steelers then had the ball back, you could just see the frustration building and building. Yeah. And it's just that young, fearless Texans team just out exuding a more experienced opponent.
In that fourth quarter, they had a fumble return for a touchdown, big man touchdown, because, again, Rodgers was sacked. I think it was Hunter that hit him on this one, and then Rankins picked up. And the thing is, if you watch it back, on first replay, you're like, how does he have that ball in his hands and how is he in the end zone? Because the ball's just in a stramash of players. and you're like, surely he's been touched down. Like, so he's diving on that ball, he's picked up. But when you watch it, he actually just crouches over into the crowd, picks the ball up, and then runs.
It's my favorite kind. It's my favorite kind of return. Like, I love when they're just like, oh, shoot, there's the ball. I'll just go with it now.
And when you watch it, I watched back a bit of a clip from the Manning cast, and it was the Mannings and Ben Roethlisberger, and he's like, "No, he's down. Surely he's down. He's got to be down. There's no way." And I think Peyton says to him, "I think that's a touchdown." And Ben Roethlisberger goes, "Shut up, Peyton." He's like, "There's no way that's a touchdown." And then when you can see Ben watching it on a separate screen. He's like, yeah, that's a touchdown.
That's a touchdown. Yeah.
And then, so they scored 23 points in that fourth quarter. Aaron Rodgers, final pass of the game, turned out to be a 50-yard pick six. At that point, when Bullock caught the ball, you're thinking he's just going to get a knee or whatever. Defense will tackle him. The defense looks as if they just checked out. I know, well, the Steelers' offense, became the offense, they didn't seem like they could be bothered tackling him. They're just like, game's a bogey now, and they let him in. Do you know what I mean? So, but yeah. So it was, in the end, it was a comfortable win for the Texans. It was a lot closer than the stats would suggest, because some of the stats for the Texans players, Christian Kirk 144 yards, which Christian Kirk, I thought he was done.
Everyone thought he left us.
WR5 for the Texans or whatever. All the other ones, 144. He seemed to be open all the time. Maybe that's what the Steelers thought. We just like Kirk. Nobody's going to. You don't need to cover him.
No one needs to touch him.
Went mental. Woody Marks 112 yards as well. So for the stats that the Texans put up, they should have been out of sight well before they were. Somehow they just weren't, which going forward could be problematic if they can't get the points on the board. I say early, first 3 quarters, only 7 points. Going into the divisional round, if they have that same performance, they're not going to get very far.
No, and up against either of their opponent this weekend and either of the following opponents the following weekend who put up big numbers, it's going to be interesting, I think, for them.
So as I mentioned there, that last pass of the game was a pick six from Aaron Rodgers. Is Aaron Rodgers' career going down the tubes with a pick six? Is he done?
I think he might be done. I think you have to kind of look at the facts on it, right? So he's 42. He was on a 1-year deal, and I know he said he was not going to make any emotional decisions, but he said that it was a satisfying experience to play in Pittsburgh after playing in New York, which I think is like, okay, this is maybe why.
Anybody's a satisfying experience after you've played with the Jets.
But I feel like that's his point, to be like, oh, at least I've closed it out in a way where I've like had a winning season and whatever. I know they've also said, I know the Steelers have said that they're more than open to having him back if he chooses not to retire, but whether that's the case.
Yeah, but from the breaking news, which we'll talk about now, that decision might get taken out of his hands.
Correct.
So if you haven't seen it yet, which by the time you watch or listen to this, you probably will have seen the news that Mike Tomlin has stepped down as the Steelers head coach, which is a rumor that we thought if the Steelers didn't go very far in the process here, that he would go, and he has decided himself to step down. So obviously the Steelers are now going to be in the market for a new head coach, along with which feels like half of the league now. So if someone comes in, they're going to want their own quarterback. Is that quarterback going to be a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers? I can't see it. Is anyone else going to pick up a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers? Again, I can't see it. And Aaron Rodgers isn't going to go somewhere to be a backup either. He'd rather, his ego's too big to go and be a backup. Somewhere he will, if his option is backup or retire, he's going to retire. But we discussed this across the board last week with the guys that are head coaching positions, and Steelers are now looking for another team looking for that. Are the Steelers now not as attractive as an option for some of those head coaches that are now on the market?
I feel like that's actually probably a fair concern, because on paper, I think their attractive factors are fading. Obviously, the QB void is obvious, right? So we've just spoken about that at length. The other things to think about are TJ Watt is incredible, but he's going to be 32.
Yep.
Like, how many years do you really have left of that? Probably not very many. And then we've spoken about this all year between the four of us, is that who is in that wide receiver room? Who is there? There's a really lack of consistent and game-changing depth. And I mean, I think the big thing is that the Steelers are very stable. So it's only their fourth head coach since 1969 in a league where head coaches are fired after 2 years. Yeah. So somebody could go in there and probably could get quite a long tenure out of it, which is attractive, I'm going to assume, for head coach candidates. They want to know they can go in and they've got time to build it.
Do you think they could attract one of the top head coach candidates that are out there? Let's just say if someone like Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel, Stefanski, do you think any of them would be interested in going to that? Based on what you've just said in terms of, and I agree with all what you've said of the state of the Steelers, I can't see one of those
No.
options that are there. I can't see any of those choosing to go to unless other options come off the table for them.
I would say no, because there's no quarterback, and the three of them are quite quarterback heavy mindsets.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't see it. They'll need a defensive. They'll need to come in with that. It'll be a defensive head coach that comes in for them.
Right, let's see how it plays out in the city of Pittsburgh over the coming weeks and months, because it's going to be very interesting to see who lands there. It seems it is to land anywhere else.
I love silly season. Especially when you're not part of silly season, it's great.
You know what, this year's silly season it also had Black Monday, right? But it's been really Black Monday this year. I feel as if everybody just went, nah, right. And silly season has went even sillier than normal, and I think it's just, but something we spoke about earlier on, Andy Reid is the longest serving head coach in the league now. But I still would say, I think Andy Reid I still think he retires. If he retires, the longest serving head coaches in the NFL will be Sean McVay, Sean McDermott, Kyle Shanahan. That's crazy considering how the amount of coaches that have left this year kind of takes that out of the equation, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then the drop below that's even worse. And then the drop below that's probably the worst.
Who would I say the other ones?
I can't remember who the other one was, but Zach Taylor's the crazy one.
He's one of them. Yeah. So, it's crazy. Anyway, let's get back to the games. So next on to Charlotte, North Carolina, and arguably on paper the biggest mismatch of the weekend. And that is despite the Panthers already winning in early this season against the Rams. And it started off exactly in that manner until the end of the second quarter. That's when the Panthers muffed the Rams' punt while 17-17 down, which gave the Rams an opportunity to open up a huge gap going into half-time. However, they failed to convert on fourth down. 60 seconds later, the Panthers had the ball in the end zone and it was game on. The Panthers then went on to score more and put 17 unanswered points on the board to take the lead at the beginning of the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, we would then see 4 lead changes, which was just crazy. It was just it was like a game of tennis.
Yeah.
Back and forward, back and forward.
That was crazy.
Was that?
Well, we thought that was crazy.
No, we didn't. We didn't. That was the first 4 of, I think, were 12 fourth quarter lead changes over the weekend across all the games, which was a wild card break. The Rams then ultimately took the lead back in the fourth quarter and seen it out 34-31, which when that first half, you just couldn't see that scoreline coming. But it was some game to kick off the weekend on Saturday night, wasn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, it was incredible to watch, because I remember sitting there watching it and getting to the end of the second quarter and being like, sack this, like, whatever, this is exactly how I thought it was. But like, it was so interesting to see the Panthers just push the Rams to the brink, just to be like, you don't have to count us out there, like, we're still in it. And I think I think for them, that game was all about like flip and momentum and how you flip it around and fix it. Like that fourth down conversion, it like flips that momentum, and it's like 6 seconds later in the end zone. And you're like, how has this happened again? And I think it's really rare to see a team who are unexpected to be in that position rattle off 17 unanswered points against a veteran squad. I think they played really well, to be fair, especially coming back out after it.
I think I texted our group chat during the game and I said at one point, whoever possesses the ball last in this game will win it.
Will win.
It didn't be the case, but the Panthers did get the ball back with 38 seconds on the clock. So I'm going to say, fair enough. Do you know what I mean? But the Rams did. They scored the winning touchdown with 38 seconds to go. So I'm going to say that's the last position, and that's when they went up 34-31. The Panthers, I would say, they led twice in that fourth quarter and they just couldn't hold on. I do feel that when they got the ball back, the play calling wasn't the best. They did try their best, but it just wasn't enough in the end. So the Rams move on with a hard-fought victory in the end, probably harder than it should have been. They had opportunities in that second quarter to extend the lead and just didn't take them. The Panthers gave them the ball in strange positions where they could have taken the lead further, just didn't take advantage of it. That fourth down we mentioned, if they'd scored on that, even if they'd maybe put 3 points on the board at that point, the Panthers maybe would have been a bit more deflated, but they weren't, and they came roaring back. So Rams move on. What's your thoughts on the future of the Panthers then? Is there bright signs for them, or is this a one-off good season?
I think there's bright signs for them. I don't think it's a one-off. I think that game shows their resilience and they're opportunistic, and like you have to fight against them to get that victory. I mean, I don't think that Bryce Young is the answer for them. I think he's a good quarterback. Whether or not I think he's a championship level quarterback, I'm not too sure. I know there's obviously they can extend it out again and they don't have to put him on a new deal, which I think is the case to go. And I don't think him performing well in that game should make them extend it for forever.
No,
It's not
they've got the option. His fifth year option, which I think is not even next year. It's the year after. So
yeah, after
this is his fourth year. So basically, they've got another 2 years of Bryce Young on his rookie deal to see what he can do,
which I think is fair. I don't think we should be paying him the big bucks yet. But I think it's important for them to remember, they swept the Falcons. They've got 2 number 1 seeds this year, and I think they're really rebuilding something in Charlotte. So, and it's just going to be, can we keep it over through the offseason into next year?
They have to add. I mean, what the thing is with the Panthers, will be not used to picking when they're going to be picking in the draft. They're used to picking at the start of the draft.
At the start, they'll be like, Jesus, they'll be like,
they're
when am I
actually
going?
going to have to do their homework in the draft this year. So I'm not going to have to pick whoever the best player is. They're now going to have to look at, right, who do we really need and what positions do we need to fill? And I think Carolina will become probably an attractive option for some players in free agency. More attractive than they were last year anyway. You're not going to go and pick up maybe the biggest. Well, depends if money talks, you can pick up whoever you want in free agency. Players that want to win, players that have got that ambition. The Panthers maybe don't look like as much of a bad option or getting a more attractive option for these players now, do you think?
I think so. I think you've got your kind of, it's also, we talk a lot on the podcast about culture and about setting culture, and we'll talk about a team who I think have really nosedived that later on. But I think the culture's there. You can see they all want to be there and perform. And again, that's probably a team that has maybe a bit of a smaller market. And you're finding that maybe that's where players are wanting to go because they're wanting to develop and they can see the clock's ticking. And, well, money talks.
Yeah.
So if
also, you might find some players that maybe want to be that big fish in the small pond.
Well, yeah, right. So
you want to go and be that, I am the number 1 receiver.
I am number 1 wide receiver. I'm getting the opportunities. I'm getting paid the money that I wouldn't be getting if I was at the Bengals and I'm number 3 and 4. So I agree.
But interesting to see, you've seen teams like the Panthers do this, so they have that one great season and then they just fade the gate away for a couple of years. And I hope that's not the case because the Panthers do deserve a bit of success in the coming years. But they're going to be up against a brand new setup in Atlanta next year with new head coach, new GM, whatever comes there. We don't know what's going to happen with the Bucks. Obviously, Todd Bowles is staying, but what the Bucks going to do? Saints are going to do anything for a while yet. So that NFC South is up for grabs for somebody to go and take it for a couple of years because the Falcons might take a couple of years to settle under the new coaching scheme, even though they've got the players there. But I think the Falcons are going to be one of those teams that attract one of the top candidate head coaches. It's going to be a tough year next year, but who knows? Stranger things do happen in the NFL. That's why we love the game. Right, next, on to a game that did look completely dead and buried at halftime. I'm going to say that this was the case due to some very bad, poor decision making by Ben Johnson in the second quarter for the Bears, including going for on fourth down on his own 32. You're down by multiple scores, you're on 32. I know he is an offensive guru, right? But that's just stupidity, in my opinion. That's not even. Oh, let's do something maybe a bit different. No, that's just stupidity, is what I feel that is.
You're like, hold on, let me clarify. I do think it's stupid.
1-3 down with what's left, 2 minutes left, you go for it fourth down. But do you know what? At the end, it didn't actually matter. But that could have had them down buried because the Packers would go on to miss the field goal that they got as a result of turning the ball over there. So it went 21-3 at halftime to the Packers. It could have been at 24-3, as I mentioned there, and that field goal kick was very costly. End up seeing talk us through what actually, we've mentioned this already with the Texans, but this game, the third quarter, nothing really happened. Fourth quarter, You thought the text in the fourth quarter was crazy. Talk us through this fourth quarter because it's just
You
remarkable.
ain't seen nothing yet. So I mean, you're trailing 21-6 going to the final frame. You pull within 5 points because you get a 5-yard touchdown. So Swift obviously gets that touchdown run, and then the Packers respond with 6:36 remaining on the clock, and they appear to like regain control. Golden broke 3 tackles on a 23-yard catch and run, so takes the Packers to 27-16. And then Brandon McManus misses the extra point again, which I think is probably okay at all. Another problem. And then on their ensuing drive, facing a 4th and 8 from their own 43-yard line with 6 minutes left, even though they didn't get it the first time, they go for it again. Williams scrambles, connects with O'Dunes for a 27-yard gain to keep the And then you got 4 minutes 18 to go. Williams finishes that drive with an 8-yard touchdown pass, a successful 2-point conversion, which makes the score 27-24. And then we miss another field goal for the Packers of 44 yards, which gives with Chicago the ball back with time. And then with 1 minute 43 remaining, they go on a final 76-yard drive, which ends in a 25-yard touchdown pass, which gives you a 31-27 lead, which is the first since the first quarter. And then it all goes tits up for Jordan Love at the end because he drops the shotgun snap, recovers it, and then throws it up.
Just watching this game, mentioned the 4th lead changes, this was just crazy. But that pass you mentioned, that Caleb Williams pass to Roma Dunze on 4th and 8, if you've not seen it, folks, go and look out. He is in the air when he throws this pass over 2 defensive backs, and Dunze's like, thank you very much. 27 yards later. That pass literally won them the game. At that point, it didn't result in any points on the board, anything like that, but that 4th down conversion, if they hadn't got that, the game was done. They were out of it. They weren't coming back. It was remarkable to watch that play. Yeah, like you said, the Packers, 2 missed field goals, a missed extra point. It was all if, buts and maybes. That would have won them the game in theory if they'd converted those, but who's to say that the rest of the game would have shaped out differently if they had scored them. Yeah, like you said, the Bears went up 3-0 with 7 minutes left in the first quarter, and they regained the lead with 1 minute 43 seconds left in the game.
And they've done what they've done all season long, which is get themselves into these absolutely what you'd probably think as a viewer a dire situation, and claw out of Ben Johnson just opens. It's almost like he just opens up the book and goes, "Oh yeah, this is what we're supposed to do right now," and just fire. And I don't get how it happens. I know people really, really rate Caleb Williams, right? And I think he's a great quarterback. But when you come up against some people you're going to come up against, I don't know if that's how far that can take you.
I don't think Williams was much of a problem, right? I know the score.
Oh, no. I don't.
When you say that Ben Johnson, I'm like, you're the same Ben Johnson that completely miscalled the whole second quarter. How can you do that in the second quarter and then call that fourth quarter? See, if you just done that in the second quarter, you'd done it in the game and you potentially would have had the game wrapped up because you would have kept yourself in the game. How's that the same head coach? How's that the same play caller that can make a mess of the second quarter so badly that then pulls that out the hat in the fourth quarter?
It's like he's went up to the mirror in the locker room at halftime, went, "Listen here, you're Ben Johnson. Yeah, what are you doing?" Because Dan Campbell's not there to shout at him, so he's got to do it himself.
That's it. And there was a drive, I think it was in that fourth quarter, that Colston Loveland just went off. Every pass went to him. It was just constant. He went for 137 yards. He did get a touchdown for his efforts, but he was phenomenal for the Bears. On the flip side, for the Packers, none of the teams can really get their run game. Both teams went under 100 yards on the ground combined, not even like one rusher. But the Packers threw for 46 plays. The Bears threw for 48. It was just a remarkable game to watch. On Caleb Williams, I have seen I wasn't sure about Caleb Williams at the start of the season. I thought the Bears could do well, but I would never have put them in this position. But I think you've seen the growth of them through the year.
Yeah. Yes, I think so.
And a lot of that is down to Ben Johnson. There's no doubt about it. We've seen what he done with Jared Goff. Jared Goff was a quarterback that was lost. He was a decent enough player. He was lost. Ben Johnson took him under his wing at the Lions, and Jared Goff elevated his game massively. Caleb Williams is doing the same thing. He's making good decisions as well, which maybe he wasn't doing before, but at the end of the day, he was a rookie, so those things are got to be accounted for. But yeah, unbelievable game. Probably one of the best games this year so far. There's probably regular season games that we've maybe forgotten about because it's a regular season and there's so many games going on a weekend that you forget there was this one great game. But that was proper playoff football. That is what you want to see in the postseason. Bears fans probably didn't want to see that scoreline at the half, but at the end of the day, they pulled out of the bag and they got back in the game, and they are through to the divisional round. For the Packers then, so Aaron Rodgers, we mentioned Aaron Rodgers earlier on, he was asked after the game about head coaches and is it been on the hot seat and stuff like that, and he basically said, I think it's ridiculous. Certain coaches have been talked about being on a hot seat. Mike Tomlin was one of them. Well, one he mentioned was Matt LaFleur. So, again, this is a Packers team that's done okay, they've done enough in the regular season. Last year, obviously, it was last year before they absolutely hammered the Cowboys in the Wildcard Weekend, went on and done nothing. They've now been knocked out in the first round of the playoffs this year. Should Matt LaFleur be on the hot seat? Is he taking the Packers as far as he can? That's the question. Can he get more out of this team?
I don't know, and I don't actually think that he maybe should be on the firing squad for his position. I don't think he should be potentially under fire. Because I think you're right. I think there is so much a head coach can do, and then it stops somewhere. And I don't necessarily think that he's at fault for it. Again, I'm not in Green Bay. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know what's happening, obviously, behind closed doors. But I don't think he's maybe the problem. But I don't know what the problem is for the Packers. I think is the actual problem. It's not obvious.
It's not a quarterback, because I think Jordan Love is a very good quarterback.
He's a really good quarterback.
Got wide receivers coming out of their ear. They've got 1 million wide receivers, and they are all of a good standard. Running game, Josh Jacobs is a good enough running back for them. They obviously lost Micah Parsons to injury.
Is that the problem?
But I don't know.
Because people are suggesting that's the problem.
Player, but if your season is falling apart because one player has got injured,
then you're not good enough. Yeah.
A team that we're going to come and talk about a wee bit, the 49ers, Nick Bosa get injured. Did their season fall apart? No.
Nope.
Do you know what I mean? So my concern, it's not a concern because it's not my team, but my thought with the Packers is can Matt LaFleur get more out of this team? And what makes me think about whether they should or shouldn't be on the hot seat, I'm not sure. But with all the head coaching candidates that are available this year, do the Packers look at this and go, we're not really going to get a pick of this caliber of head coach again?
Yeah. And what do we have to lose?
The Packers are a massively attractive option for a lot of head coaches. They've got the history, they've got the fan base, they've got the stadium, they've got the players, they've got the GM and the family. They're all a massive attraction. If they were to go to someone like John Harbaugh, he would have to have a real hard think about whether he wanted to take that or not. That's not one he's going to dismiss. Again, Stefanski's there. There's talking about Brian Flores. These are people that this might be a one chance to get someone like that. And that's where I think the Packers might look at this and think, yeah, Matt LaFleur's not done a bad job, but now's an opportunity to make that change. Can we go and take that step and get that elite head coach like a Harbaugh? That's where I think what might force the Packers' hand, rather than they think that LaFleur's done a bad job. They're probably looking thinking there's coaches out there that we think should potentially do a better job. They have got a young team. They have got an exciting team. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that one plays out over the coming weeks. It seems it is with every team, but especially a team like the Packers, where it's not as clear cut that the coach should go. So it'll be interesting to see. They've a big decision to make in Green Bay, so let's keep an eye on that one. All right. I mentioned earlier, Sarah, you were the only one that had a vested interest in the playoffs this weekend. Your beloved Jags, and I can't remember which of your players I argued with, but I argued with one of your players and said, I'm jumping on the bandwagon with the Jags this year. Who was it? Who didn't want me on the bandwagon? I can't even remember.
I can't remember who it was, yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was Trayvon Walker.
Trayvon Walker?
I think he was, it usually is. Yeah, he runs his mouth a little bit.
And I said, I am not listening to it, and I'm jumping on the Jags bandwagon. You said a great into the regular season, into the playoffs against the Bills. It was a game that they couldn't really separate. They couldn't decide where this was going to go with overs, unders, favours, odds, whatever. But how did the Jags against the Bills play out, Sarah?
I will go out there and say, and I've said it privately, but I really, really think that should have been the championship matchup, especially considering how the other AFC games went this weekend. I think that should have been the championship game. I think the Bills came in with the veteran pedigree. They have the quarterback. They have everything that you think. Well, actually, they don't really right now, which is a point. Yeah. But they have that mindset. They have the play, like they've been at the playoffs before, they've done it all, they've seen it all. And I think we started the game so well. Like that rushing attack was so good. Like, we kept them to 79 yards on the ground, like which is insane, especially when you're up against the level of James Cook that you're up against, right?
Yeah.
I think Trevor Lawrence was really efficient, besides the interception that he threw in the first half, which again wasn't really his fault. And you lead a fourth quarter comeback to take a 24-20 lead with 4 minutes to go, and the game just swings away from you in the final minutes. Despite battling multiple injuries, Josh Allen gets a 66-yard go-ahead drive with a 1-yard touchdown run with 1:04 left, and basically comes down to a deflected pass, which is intercepted to seal a 27-24 Buffalo victory. Yeah, I think for the Jags, I think this is a statement of progress for us. And I think for the Bills, it was maybe a narrow escape that does keep their window open. But I think this will be interesting for them moving on.
I think, like, as a neutral watching this, obviously, I say a neutral, wasn't obviously wanted your Jags to win. I was rooting on the Jags to win this. I did pick them to win, and I'll pick 6 this week as well with that game. But and this is like, I've never felt this watching a neutrals game before. I've felt this feeling so many times watching a Cowboys game. But seeing that fourth quarter when that pass was deflected interception, just like such an anticlimax, everything just dropped. I mean, like, see if you're going to lose the game to like a massive play by a DB, putting the ball down, or just Trevor just missing and trying the best. But it was just as if it was just such a deflating way to lose the game. It was like everything you've put into this game, and that's how it ends. It's just, I don't know, deflating is probably the best word I can think of for it. It's just like, you're just like, we can maybe do this, and you're like,
we can't. Which annoyingly like sums up how it sort of feels to be a Jaguars fan for the past like 10 years, is that it's always just not quite enough. But there's a lot, I think sometimes the Jaguars fan base can be quite toxic, and that everyone then just jumps on the bandwagon. So like you immediately go to like a Reddit or a Twitter, or X I should say, and everybody's like, well, Trevor Lawrence isn't great, blah blah blah, this sucks, this person needs to be let go, this person needs to be fired. Whereas like when you kind of go to bed and then you wake up on the Monday morning, you actually go, well, hang on a minute, everything was right, it just wasn't our day at the end of it. But that doesn't mean that next season's going to be terrible, because there's so much to be like there's so many things to be grateful for. Like Parker Washington is an absolute powerhouse, and who would have seen that coming? Certainly not me. We did most of the season without our first round pick in Travis Hunter, who covers the position that we need covered in the secondary. So I think the future is still bright down in Duval County, and I'm happy how the season ended. Well, the regular season ended, maybe not how the playoffs went.
And I'm going to give someone a shout out here, Sarah. She's probably never going to see this or never going to hear from us, but Lynn Jones-Turpin, that press conference she did, and what she said to Liam Cohen in that game probably sums up exactly where everybody kind of sees the Jags. You should be proud of yourself. You did have a good season. The future's bright. You can see it. And she was spot on. She's like, so many times you see people get to these press conferences in the press, and we've seen the reaction to her from other journalists in terms of the way they've reacted to her saying that. She was bang on. Press conferences, she was bang on. Like, did she echo kind of how you feel about the situation?
Yeah, totally. I think so. I think people, especially journalists, have to remember, like, she's been with that institution for like 20 years. So she has seen some amount of crap come out of that team. And I think she needs to be proud where she comes from, right? So that's obviously, I think, part and parcel of it. I think everyone's maybe how good the season has been for the Jaguars. I think people are really forgetting how bad the season was last year, was the year before that, was not the 2022 season, but even before that. So yeah, she really echoed what I thought. And I think you could really see Cohen take a second to be like, no, actually, do you know what? You're right. And you could see him kind of go back into himself. Because I mean, these journalists are just hounding you at the end to be like, oh, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that?
You can see it. There's a moment when you watch him, when she starts talking, you can see he's a bit apprehensive and he's not sure, and eventually he realises what she's saying and he just starts smiling, and you can visibly see him just relax when she's talking. And it obviously means a lot for him, because he's obviously come in with the reputation of doing well at the Bucks, but nobody ever knew how he was going to be as a head coach. It was all new. Rob started the Duval thing at the start, which didn't get off to a great start either. Do you know what I mean? All that, and it was all at the start. But for him, there must be a lot of personal pride in him saying, look, yeah, I've come in here, and this is where, and a lot of these journalists are fans. I'm assuming, is genuinely a Jacksonville Jaguars fan for the way she reacted. So to get that reaction, for him, it must feel like, yeah, okay, I am doing something right here.
Yeah, like I think I actually think he's done a really, really good job this year. I don't think it's just a good job. I think I've talked about this previously on an episode with you, but it's the culture, it's the mindset change, it's all of those things that he's been implementing. And I think it's been absolutely, I think it's really blown open what the Jaguars can become. I'm just gutted that, number one, that we won the AFC South because we never would have had the Bills, or that we didn't get somebody else in that matchup. I think we could have taken anybody else.
Yeah, you could see Trevor Lawrence was talking about it after the game, and you could see the appreciation, the love that he's got for Liam Cohen, and it seems to be the whole locker room that everybody's behind him. And as we've said many times with different teams across the league, culture is key to making a successful team. And you might not make a success in year 1, year 2, year 3, but you keep building that culture and you keep the culture going. When you bring in new players, you keep that culture going. Eventually, those players will get you the success based on the culture that you've fostered in the locker room.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah, I think I'm fine. I'm fine with it. It's okay.
I think that as a neutral, the Jags should be proud of the season that they've got. Yeah. I feel that it probably is a disappointing end because he's doing so well, and I did think he could win that game. I know it was the Bills and everybody Bills, but I really think that game was there for you to win. But as you said, maybe the better one of the other opponents in the AFC when we come to those games in a minute. On the day, you don't know what team's going to turn up, who they're going to perform. But based on that game, the other night, you could have won that, and I think that's what makes it feel a bit disappointing. But the bigger picture, great season for the Jags.
Yeah, totally. Excellent. I agree.
All right, let's flip back to the NFC for the next game. So this is a game I think, and this sounds really daft me saying this because most games are, but I think this game was won on the sidelines as much as it was won on the field. That might be obvious, it might be daft, but I'm going to tell you why. A banged up 49ers who lost George Kittle to an Achilles injury in the second quarter were led by Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh, and they completely outcoached the Eagles and Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo. I thought it was a coaching masterclass. This isn't a situation where they've robbed them and they ran up massive scores and beat them like that. It was all the small details that made the difference. It was a tactical battle. It was really fascinating to watch. We'll come to a play in a minute and I'll break down how Dan Orlovsky's broke it down today and how the small details work. In the end, the 49ers did win this by 4 points. So like I said, it wasn't a massive win. It was 23-19. However, 49ers defence restricted the Eagles to 6 points in the second half, which was massive. I mean, this is an Eagles offence that's been misfiring all season, but they did get off to a good start. They got 182 yards and 14 points in their first 3 possessions and then done nothing. Sorry, 13 points because they missed the point after. It's an issue they've had all season. They've been drops, there was missed passes, there was penalties, and it was just a messy offensive performance from the Eagles in the second half. And what I find quite funny and quite ironic for the Eagles is that the 49ers done exactly what the Eagles have been doing for the last couple of years. They just done enough. They just done enough to win the game. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't massive. The stats weren't huge. And Marcus Robinson went off and had a great game. Christian McCaffrey, 48 yards. Brock Purdy, 31 passes for 262 yards. It wasn't a massive offensive performance. It was enough, though. It was just enough to win the game. And that's, at this point in the season, winning's all that matters. Win by 4 points, win by 40 points. It doesn't matter. You win and you're in. And that's all that matters for them. There was a beautiful trick play in the fourth quarter. This is what I'm going to talk about. And the breakdown of this play was that Dan Orlovsky showed, I think it was 2 or 3 series before, the series before this play, the 49ers ran a jet sweep and they watched the Eagles defence to see where they went, and they all followed the jet sweep. So not only the players that were meant to go physically to the jet sweep, the rest, the defence on the other side turned and watched the jet sweep. So what the 49ers done, and this is genius, is they ran another jet sweep. So the players all done the same thing, but then they reversed it to Dwayne Jennings, who threw the ball to Christian McCaffrey, who was wide open in the end zone for a touchdown, which gave them the lead in the fourth quarter. But that's what I said about that. They outcoached them, the minor details, and that is something that I don't know, the Eagles just haven't done it this year. They haven't, especially not on offence. Kevin Bertolo, they've won him sacked for ages and he's still there. So, but what were your thoughts on this game in general, Sarah?
Yeah, I think it was a really fascinating tactical battle. Like, I think when we're talking about, again, like defenses winning champions, I think like the championships, this is kind of, again, what it alludes to. It does feel like a classic case of just the 49ers always having an answer to anything the Eagles are going to try and throw at them. I think, like, you spoke kind of there about almost like the rhythm of the Eagles, and I think that's like there's just a problem with it. Like, the drops, the penalties are exactly what have plagued them all season, and it just looks messy. It looks uncoordinated, especially when it matters most in this situation. And I think when you're talking about that touchdown the trickery passes Christian McCaffrey, that gave the 49ers exactly the momentum they needed just to see it out. Like, that the defense is watching the sideline and being like, well, they've just done that, so I need to go and close it out, which is exactly what they did at the end of it.
Yeah, but I think as well as like when they went ahead, the 49ers are thinking, we know the Eagles have got nothing. They've given us nothing all game. They've given us nothing all second half. So we know that they're going to have to do something spectacular to come back and score a touchdown. And it just never looked like happening the whole of the second half, never mind when the game was on the line.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So it was a massive, I mean, the 49ers went up with just under 3 minutes left in the game was when
which we know is enough time, right? Based on the other games, that's more than enough time to do anything, and you just don't do anything with it. Really gave them the momentum then to be like, actually, the defense were like, well, let's get them off the field again and let's give the offense another chance to do it. Yeah,
so they got, I mean, the 49ers then threw an interception. The Eagles a field goal on the back of that, and then the pulled it in McCaffrey to kind of see like the Eagles went for it. 44 yards on the last drive, and they kind of went for it fourth down and didn't get there. But I mean, we talk about the 49ers and their defensive and their defensive injuries full stop. This season they've just been the 49ers, and this has been for years now, was next man up, and that next man up always seems to do the job. And this week it's Garrett Wallow. I'm going to give him a shout out here. He's probably never going to hear this, but I'm going to give him a shout out anyway. He was pulled up from the practice squad. He had 11 tackles in this game, 5 solo tackles, 6 tackles, shared tackles, and that's the sort of thing. He led tackles for the 49ers. So it's like, yeah, we've not got Nick Bosa, we've not got all these players, we've not got Fred Warner, but you know what? Garrett Wallow on the practice squad is going to come up and make 11 tackles. Do you mean that's just something the 49ers seem to just keep doing? I don't know how. I don't know where they're pulling these. It's like Mary Poppins' bag. They're just pulling players out of this bag. Every time somebody gets injured, they just pull this player out of the bag and gets a job.
Literally, I know. I mean, I've got a friend who's a 49ers fan, and she's been like, I'm just going to sneak my way into this, and no one's going to know how it's happened, because every game he goes, fuck, I don't know, the injuries are pretty bad, and I'm like, oh, shut up. Like,
I mean, to be fair, the injuries have been bad, but losing George Kittle to an Achilles injury, it could have happened to a nicer guy. I mean, he is such a nice guy. Everybody loves George Kittle. And you seen it straight away. As soon as he planted his foot, you just seen it move, and you're like, oh, this is Achilles, that's him. He's done. Potentially done permanently. It's
not something you really can necessarily come back on when, I mean, I can't even remember off the top of my head how old George Kittle is, but he must be about the same age.
Right now, he'll be 33 in October.
Yeah, I was about to say, he must be about the same age, coming towards that kind of mark as what we're talking about earlier with TJ Watt. Yeah, it's a shame, especially because it's happened now, and I know it's an Achilles, it's not necessarily the worst thing to come back from, but you're now in January. Realistically, when are you going to be up and moving and running again? Yeah,
for him to play, if he doesn't retire, his next game would probably have to be in the playoffs next year. Yeah, I mean, you're talking, you can sometimes see up to a year's recovery from an Achilles injury. It just depends how bad it is. I mean, obviously, it was Aaron Rodgers, he'd come back stupidly quick. Don't know what he done there. Do you know what I mean? But generally, you're talking 9 to 12 months for an Achilles injury. So George Kittle's then got to think, do I have the motivation to do all that rehab, to then get fit again, to then go again? The fact I might not even play next year.
Yeah,
that's which, I mean, he's probably not had these. Well, he probably has had these thoughts so far, but it's not always something he's taken seriously yet. But he's going to have a lot of thinking to do, and like, can I motivate myself through the rehab and the hope that I get back next year? But depends how long that's going to be. Am my team going to make the playoffs? So they're go through all that effort to hope that my team make the playoffs so I can play again. You got a big call to make. I hope if he does have to go out, he's what a career he's out with anyway. But hopefully we do see him back on the field again because he is a great player.
He's a great player. Yeah. And again, he's a nice guy. And they're hard to
For
come by
the
in the NFL.
Eagles, all the Eagles, they now have a massive call to make, I think. All season, well, not all season, since he came in pretty much, the Eagles have been asking for the coordinator, Kim Patullo, to be fired. That we mentioned, the offence hasn't been fired all year. There's something not right there. He is Nick Sirianni's mate. That is the problem we've got here. Nick Sirianni has not sacked him, and everybody says, okay, they're mates, so he's not going to sack his mate. So is that going to come back to bite Nick Sirianni? Is Nick Sirianni going to follow Kevin Patullo out the door?
Well, they've just announced that Kevin Patullo's gone.
What? Breaking news. That's the second bit of news we've got tonight.
That's, as of 10 minutes ago, they have parted ways with him. He met with, so Nick Sirianni met with the offensive coordinator on Tuesday to inform him of his decision. So, I mean, I guess that to me would tell you that Sirianni is still staying, but they have gotten rid of Patullo.
It's not exactly throwing Patullo under the bus because it probably is Patullo's fault, but is that Sirianni trying to save his own job by going to the owners and go, well, if I'll get rid of him, but well, you're the guy who kept him all season, so surely they're going to have to question him on that.
Well, yeah, he has said that ultimately when we fall short of our goals, that responsibility lies on my shoulders. So I guess I think that's taking the high ground a little bit. But yeah, I think when I spoke about earlier about teams that have problems in their locker room and their culture, I think the Eagles are a team in particular that we know has a problem. Maybe will this change it? I don't really know. That would leave me to be seen because I don't necessarily know how much of your culture comes from your offensive coordinator rather than your head coach.
I know they won the Super Bowl last year, but this has been an ongoing theme with the Eagles in terms of this rumour Sirianni, Nick Hurt's just not getting on. It's been going on for a couple of years now. Obviously they were successful last year, so wasn't spoken about much. But there's definitely something not right in that organisation. And that was before Kevin Patullo came along, because he only came in this year. So there's something not right somewhere. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Do I think they'll fire him? Probably not. Do I think
he's safe now. Yes.
Again, I think the thing is the Eagles are probably going to be in the same situation we spoke about with the Packers, though.
I know.
And I know Sirianni's a Super Bowl winning head coach, and it sounds really daft, but I don't class him in the same bracket as a John Harbaugh, for example. Anyway, so I think the Eagles are probably in that same situation we discussed with the Packer. Like, who's out there? Eagles, again, will be another organisation that's very attractive to potential head coach candidates. So again, I think the ownership in Philadelphia probably wouldn't be having the same thoughts and conversations that the Packers are having, of thinking, do we just pull the trigger and go for John Harbaugh or Kevin Stefanski, or just throw it out there and see the time for a culture change? Is it time for something to see if something else? And that sounds really daft coming less than 12 months after they won a Super Bowl. It sounds ridiculous saying it, but there's something not right there, something that they need to deal with and they need to address. As an outside, don't know what that is, but we'll see how that one plays out over the next wee while. But I don't think they will fire him, but I do think they will have thoughts about who's available and make a decision on that. All right, let's wrap up Sunday. We mentioned earlier on that you wished that the Jaguars had fucked on the other side of the coin and got other opponents. Would the LA Chargers have been one you went up against on their day? Potentially not, but the way they played this weekend, you would have loved.
Yep.
The Chargers visiting Jacksonville this weekend. So they've been so inconsistent this year. They finished the regular season with an 11-6 record. And unfortunately for their fans, the bad side of the LA Chargers turned up on Sunday night in Foxborough. Their old line just forgot to turn up full stop. Never mind the team turning up. Justin Herbert was running for his life all night. And a team that, with a quarterback like Justin Herbert, good running game, couple of decent running backs, Lad McConkey, Keenan Allen on the field, they put up 3 points. Massively disappointing from the Chargers. 16-3 they lost to the Patriots. Defenses were a massive factor because both quarterbacks were sacked for a total of 11 times. It was 6 and 5. The Patriots, they done just enough to win the game, but winning 6-3 against a Chargers team that didn't really turn up, and they only really put this game to bed with 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Does this cause concern for the Patriots? We've had it all year. The Patriots can't win big games. They've had an easy schedule. They come up against the Chargers, who are a decent team, who didn't perform, and they didn't put them to bed until 9 minutes left, and they only put 16 points up. Is that a concern for the Patriots?
I think it's valid when you look at some people that the three remaining people the teams they'll come up against, right? Because maybe minus the Texans, because I don't really know how strong that offense would is really going to be. But I feel like against your other two, you're maybe looking at something that's going to be a bit more of a hard slog, right? I am impressed with the Patriots defense. I do think they did really, really well, all things considering. I know the Chargers O-line's what they're like, the 11th variation of it, and God, you're pulling players off the street, essentially being like, going to come and make sure Justin Herbert's protected.
The Patriots defensive line. No, thank you.
No, thank you. I'm okay. But yeah, I think, I was still relatively impressed with them considering who they've maybe been up against in the season already. I actually think I'm more disappointed about Justin Herbert than I am maybe surprised about the Patriots defense, if that makes sense. I don't know if that really shines a light on what maybe the glass ceiling is in the Chargers for him. I think he obviously has that arm talent, but you can't run for your life all night and expect to win.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
Yeah, it is. They just did no protection at all last night. But this isn't the first time we've seen this from Justin Herbert. He just, I don't know, he just doesn't seem to be able to do it. And when it matters in these big games, I mean, that's him
you look at the game against the Jaguars where they put up all those points and you should be able to shut it out at that point. And again, is that really the fault of the offense when your defense then lets the opposition come back like 27 points? Yes and no, but then you don't score anything after it.
Yep.
You have to learn how to play the big games when the big games matter.
I missed this in the preparation for us recording. This just happened just before we started recording. Chargers have sacked Greg Roman, their offensive coordinator. So
well, that tells you, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that does tell you, but yeah,
did a hard one. I know you love Justin there.
I just think there's so much talent in there. It just doesn't come out. I mean, he throws the most perfect spiral. I've never seen a quarterback in the league throw a spiral the way he throws it. It is beautiful, but that spiral's only useful if receivers catch it or the defensive backs don't catch it. Moving on from Greg Roman. So, yeah, I think the Chargers really get someone in that really is a quarterback focused.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Justin Herbert needs almost like the Trevor Lawrence, Liam Cohen, Baker Mayfield experience, right? He needs somebody to come in.
It sounds really daft because his head coach was a quarterback in the NFL.
I know, but there's just something that's not quite there on it.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what the answer is for him. Do they swap brothers? Do they just go?
Can you imagine?
Literally.
Can you imagine just turned up we just turned up at different. What do you mean? I'm John. I'm John. No, you're John. I don't know whether Jim Harbaugh, he was a quarterback, but he done well at Michigan offensively as well. But there's a situation where you look at who plays the modern NFL playbook as a offensive coordinator. Someone like, can you imagine Mike McDaniel getting in there as offensive coordinator?
I know.
That would be great for the Chargers. He's obviously probably got aspirations to go and be a head coach somewhere. But if you were to put someone like Mike McDaniel in there with him as offensive coordinator, that could be a game changer. It's just who's going to get the best out of Jim Harbaugh, of Justin Herbert, because clearly John Harbaugh's not getting it. Sorry, not Jim. So you've confused me with switching the
Sorry,
balls.
I know. Could have talked about the swapping. Who wants Lamar Jackson?
His offensive coordinators haven't got the best out of him. So they do something. They have got good pieces of Chargers. They have got Marion Hampton. They've got Lad McConkey there. They've got the pieces. I mean, the thing is, we're only, 2 years into a Chargers full rebuild. Harbaugh went in there and ripped the place apart. Get rid of Keenan Allen. He's now brought him back. They moved on. Who's running back whose name I've just completely forgot. Anyway, so they basically Harbaugh went in and cleared the Chargers out and they thought, we're starting again. So are they where they should be? Or are they ahead of progress where they want to be? Only time will tell. Harbaugh's there for a long run. That's not going to change. But they need to bring someone in who is going to get the best out of Justin Herbert, because what they've done so far is not working. The talent is there. Is the mentality there with Justin Herbert? That's maybe the question. He can throw a ball. He can win a game. He can rack up the yards. He can score touchdowns. But is it a mentality thing rather than a talent thing?
Is it a mentality thing because he thinks he's going to get absolutely flattened every time he steps on that field and break everything under the sun?
That is possible.
And also, he's obviously got his left hand still injured, right? So
he's still not
recovered.
I think it's very obvious that the Chargers are going to have to go offensively in the draft, or they're going to have to, the agency, going to have to go and pick up massive pieces. Not even one that they're going to have to go and get a whole new restructure of that line and hope.
They don't get injured.
As we come on to the Broncos, are just going to go from strength to strength. This is probably the only thing that's happening in Chargers' favour, is that the Broncos are going to go from strength to strength. Chiefs are probably falling off for a couple of years, and the Raiders are just never coming anywhere near them. So that second, if they can continue to get 11 and 12 wins, they're probably going to make the playoffs, even as the wild card. But it's when they get there, that's the problem. They need to get over that hump, and Justin Herbert needs to win a playoff game. That feels cheap coming from a Dallas Cowboys fan saying that, but anyway. Right, so that's the end, the roundup of the wildcard games, Sarah. We're down to 8 teams, because now the 6 winners of those games, plus the number 1 seeds, join in for the divisional rounds. 4 games we've got. So we have the Bills at the Broncos. That's Saturday night, 9:30 UK time. We then get the 49ers going to the Seahawks, which is, for those that can't sleep in the UK, 1 o'clock on Sunday morning. Texans and the Patriots will start us off on Sunday night at 8, and then we finish off with the Rams and the Bears at 11:30. So let's have a quick couple of lines about each game. Let's not go too depth into them. But Bills at Broncos, do not give me your picks, because then that gives away a pick 6 later on in the week. So don't say who's going to win it. But Bills and Broncos, what do you expect from this game?
Denver with a well-rested team will be really interesting to see how they come out the gate. I have concerns about the Bills with their injuries now, in particular with Gabe Davis. Again, I know there's not really a wide receiver room in Buffalo, but I think that's going to be a problem. And obviously, Jordan Poore is also going to miss because he's got a hamstring injury. So I think that's going to be really interesting. And see how that Denver defense does against Superman, essentially.
Yeah, because like you said, you guys got at Josh Allen at the weekend. They did get banged up. That Broncos defense is just going to come out the gate flying right for him.
Because they'll have sat at home and watched that and know exactly what to expect. You know, Sean
will be rubbing his hands looking at what that Bills offensive line didn't do at the weekend. In terms of the Bills, like you said, we keep saying this about the Bills, they have to keep putting on Josh Allen's shoulders all the time. And as we know, that at some point is going to fall down. It's happened every year. They were lucky it didn't happen last weekend. If the Bills get through this weekend against the Broncos, then just give them the Lombardi, because
they should get it.
I mean, that's it. Like, if you can get through these last 2 weekends, and you know what? Nobody's going to stop them, because it's going to be a phenomenal performance for them to get through it. So looking forward to that one. Rematch of the game we've seen last Thursday night, the 49ers and the Seahawks, when it was for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Seahawks won that fairly comfortably. I would expect a different 49ers this time. I know it is in Seattle again. The 49ers are even more banged up than they were, but this is a winning situation. I think the 49ers I know they wanted the number 1 seed. I'm not saying they're not going to be less motivated for that, but the 49ers are going to come off that performance against the Eagles where they stifled them and they stopped them running, they stopped them playing the game. Seahawks have been good this year, but do they have better weapons than what the Eagles have? I think it's very similar in terms of, obviously they've got the number 1 receiver in the league this year in GSN, but running games probably I'd say average. Sam Darnold, depends what Sam Darnold turns up. If they can put in a defensive performance like they did the other night, the 49ers have a chance in this game. What's your thoughts on this one?
I'm just, it's like, here we go again. This matchup. Again, another probably quite strong defense matchup. I think this game's really interesting because obviously the Seahawks, if they can repeat what they did in week 18, which is where they held the 49ers to 173 yards, which is the lowest they've had in 9 seasons. This game is theirs to win. And I don't know if that's where what might be the crumble for the 49ers is they just can't get anything going for them.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be a good game.
They need to forget that game happened in week 18. The 49ers need to just forget all about that. Don't even think about that game.
Yeah, but you know the Seahawks are going to go in it being like, oh, remember that time that we did this? Ha ha ha, let's go do it again. So it's a total game of like mental chess for them and that. And they meet each other all the time. They know exactly how the other team plays. I'm gutted that's not earlier to watch it.
Yeah, I know.
No, I can't. I'm away. I'll be waking up at like 4 a.m. trying to watch some of it.
Right, into Sunday's games, Texans and the Patriots. So this is a game you kind of alluded to. We deliberately didn't mention who's playing who throughout this whole podcast. We wanted to talk about this at the end. But you have alluded to this at the start of the podcast when we were talking about Texans. Like, if the Texans go off to the same offensive start they did this weekend, they are screwed. That Patriots defense will just swallow them up, and Drake May will go out and put points on the board, and the Texans will not come back and score 20 odd points in the fourth quarter against this Patriots team.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah. And I think a key thing to point out with this as well is CJ Stroud's won home playoff games in each of his first 2 seasons, but he has not won a divisional game on the road. Like, he's just won the wild card on the road, but he's not won a divisional game on the road. And I mean, going to Foxborough can be slightly an intimidating everything as the Patriots. They had the dynasty, they had all of these things, and Drake May is one of your final MVP candidates. He is probably the real deal. And it all just going to come down if can Houston's that defense swarm on top of Drake May, or can they not? And I'm entitled to think they maybe can't, and they just won't put up the points.
I mean, I think the Texans defense will get a bit of success, but Drake May will be able to, he has an ability to get out. But what the difference I feel is that if that Texans defense does get at Drake May, the Patriots still have enough to then come back and like the Steelers just didn't have anything.
Yes.
The Patriots do have the weapons to come back, and if they go 2 scores behind, the Patriots are only going to be worried about that. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. What I forgot to mention during the Texans game, and it's something that I noticed, and I don't know whether I think it's the first time, I think the whole regular season they had like 1 fumble or something like that. CJ Stroud fumbled the snap 3 times all night.
Yep.
And 2 of them they lost the ball. 1 of them managed to recover it. Oh, 1 he recovered it, and then it was fumbled again after he recovered it because he tried to throw a pass. So they lost the fumble on 1. That disconnect. There was 1 of the fumbles was that the Steelers just snapped the ball, just said, I'm just going to snap the ball. No cadence, no nothing, I'll just snap the ball. Those mistakes will go massively punished against the Patriots. They will not get the ball back against that Patriots defensive line if they make those mistakes again. This one, I think, will be a very interesting tactical battle between the 2 teams. Because both teams, this could easily be a shootout, but this could also easily be a 16-13 game. This is one of it could go either way in terms of both teams could put up 40 points and try to outshoot each other. Both teams could then stifle each other and make it a fight in the trenches to see who wins it.
Totally. I'm interested by it all. And just when you're talking there, before we move on to the last game, when you're talking about how obviously they fumbled the ball so many times, does that come from not being at home, from being in a crowd that's giving you everything they've got against it?
And then you're going to go to Foxborough where it's going to be even louder.
Yep.
And it's going to be even colder.
Yep. So that's the thing, right? Because Texans obviously play
harder as well. The ball's going to be harder, so you really need to concentrate. Those snaps need to be bang on because the ball's going to be harder and there's going to be noisier. So you need to in the NFL you shouldn't make mistakes, but when you get to divisional games, mistakes like that will be punished. You're at this level now where you're not going to get away with it. You got away with it the weekend there because they're up against a poor Steelers team. They're facing a Patriots team that is absolutely flying and will capitalise on every mistake they make. Right, on to the last game where I think we are going to have a shootout.
Yes, 100%.
A shootout. It's the Rams at the Bears. Again, we talk about cold weather. We've got our LA team going to Chicago where it's going to be freezing this weekend. Again, this is going to be an absolute shootout, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be an interesting battle of a veteran experience against rising stars. Obviously, we know that Matthew Stafford is absolutely superb. Like, you can just look at the stats from it, clean pocket. But he does face a Bears defense that will take away the ball. And that might be the really interesting thing to watch. Because I think the offense can put up points, but it's going to be, can a defense take the ball away and who can keep it away?
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Rams need to get a run game going this weekend. Kyren Williams and Blake Corum went for 68 yards. Not, is it 60? No, that's not right. 40, just under 100 yards between them.
Yeah.
They really need to get that run game going again. And they can't rely on the Puka Nacua constantly to win the game for them, which is not really harmed them so far. But against this secondary, they're going to have to really step up. I mean, Parkington was good at tight end for them. So, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting battle. Caleb Williams against Matt Stafford, young gunslinger versus experienced gunslinger. See if Caleb Williams goes out and leads the Bears to this a victory on Sunday night against the Rams, then he is the real deal.
Yes.
He's not going to win this game by luck or by fluke. So he's going to have to go out and win the game and put a marker down. And if he does, I'll put my hand up and say, yeah, you are now the real deal. No matter what happens after that, even if they go to the championship game and don't win it, I still think beating the Rams and beating Matt Stafford is a marker.
And I don't know if this, I don't think this game can fall the way the Bears have played with Ben Johnson flumps the first 2 quarters, but comes back on 3rd and 4. And I know we just watched the Panthers and the Rams, and obviously that did look like it fell apart, but I can't see it working for them again if that's how it plays out. And I know the early predictions are really split on it, which I think just shows how totally when you're right about how this will be a shootout. I think people are suggesting it will be 30-27 is totally it. So yeah, another one I'm gutted is late.
Not as late, it's only 11:30 on Sunday night.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you've got 2 offensive gurus going head to head, and it's can the wily old fox, I say, he's not really that old, and Sean McVay experience. Is he going to make those mistakes that Ben Johnson made? No, he's not. So Ben Johnson really needs to step up and basically
talk in the mirror to himself.
Yes, before the game even starts, have a good hard look in the mirror at yourself. Ben Johnson needs to call mistake-free football and needs to give his team the best opportunity. If he calls the second quarter the way they did all night, the Rams will just walk over him and maybe they'll not come up for the second half. I know the Panthers did, but I think the Rams maybe switched off a wee bit.
Yeah, I think they thought it was really easy for them at the end.
It was easy for those first quarter and a half, and they probably thought, that's fine.
That's fine. But come off, it's
anyway,
fine.
4 great games to come this weekend. The playoffs are just getting warmed up. If we get anything as half as exciting as Wildcard Weekend, it's going to be an absolute cracker. That brings us to the end of this episode. So, as I said at the start, make sure you're following us on Instagram and TikTok for all our latest content, including an announcement on where we will be for an event on Super Bowl Sunday. Please do not miss out. Subscribe on YouTube and all podcast platforms to get notifications of when the next podcast drops. Thanks for joining me tonight, Sarah.
No problem. What a great episode. We'll have to keep this going on for next year, won't we? Screw the rest of them. It's fine.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
We will be back next week. Well, I will be back next week with 2 other people, Brian and potentially a special guest. We'll keep that one under wraps for now. And with 4 divisional games to look back on and 2 conference championships to look forward to. And as always, until next time, we'll see you soon.